A crisis is taking place in the contemporary world in a variety of forms, cutting across the realms of culture, ethics, politics, and so forth. At the ground of these problems is the fact that the essence of being human has turned into a question mark for humanity itself. Keiji Nishitani, The Self Overcoming of Nihilism. The pursuit of anime is an aim to explore philosophical topics through the medium of anime, to create discussion and to enlighten ourselves. We are by no means professionals, and the content of this podcast is pure discussion meant to stimulate and exercise our minds and hopefully yours too. So today we're talking about an age-old question. I'm joined here by Teddy and I'm Raven. We're your hosts. What's up,
Hello.
Teddy? Today we're talking about this kind of age-old topic about how do you find meaning in life, and it's very relevant because I saw this video or this short the other night by this creator that I love watching, Priscilla Kwan on YouTube Shorts, where she was covering this incident that happened in Seoul. I think it was a week or two ago, where this young man, or I don't know how young he was, but he was a man that he went into kind of the heart of Seoul and just went around just like stabbing and hurting a bunch of people, and he ended up unfortunately taking the life of I think a few innocent people. And when he was questioned about why he did this, he said it was because my life sucks, and this is a horrible, just a horrible incident, and that's no excuse to do something like that. Just a disgusting human being. But it did get me thinking about the topic of this podcast because I feel like a lot of people, um, maybe not on that level, of course, not on that kind of macro hyper violent level, but there's a lot of people that because my life sucks, I will push others away, or I will hurt others, or act in a way that's detrimental to myself or my family or my close friends. Maybe not in a physically violent way, but sometimes in an emotionally violent way, or something of that nature. So I think it's definitely something that I've seen, I've observed people do. I've definitely observed in myself when I was young, growing up. Just thinking, oh, my life sucks. Like basically having the sense that you have no meaning in your life, right? And
Yeah,
because you have no meaning, you're just miserable. And that's affecting the way that you view the world. That's affecting the way that you interact with others and the relationships you make.
I have a
And
weird way to look at it.
yeah,
Have you ever thought that maybe for those people, their purpose in life is to not have any meaning to their lives or to be bored? And so they do the things they do, which in turn shows us the way not to be. Because I feel like we say this a lot. Everybody is being put on this earth with a purpose. Everybody has a role to play in the grand scheme of things, whether it be for themselves or for the people around them. And I look at
yeah,
people like that, and you think all of us, we have times in our lives, even if we have something driving us, even if we have meaning in our lives, all of us, we have days where we're bored. Sometimes it goes on to be weeks, months, and then you have to find something to stimulate yourself. But in this case, right, these people, they just exist in a constant state of boredom. And they figure, let me just do something to entertain myself or to get something inside me going. And so they go on these murder sprees or things of that nature, and they do what they do. And sometimes I can't help but think maybe that's all they amount to. Maybe they exist for the sole purpose of showing us regular folks who, no matter how bored we get, will never do something like this, to show us what not to do. And it's like you see a story like that, or you see people behaving that way, and it's just a stark comparison to where you want to be in life, and you're like, oh, I never want to be like that. It's like setting a bad example of sorts, like a tutorial on what not to do. Have you ever thought about it that way?
yeah, for sure. Like you can definitely add that meaning to like these these seemingly like meaningless kind of actions, or just like with the way you look at other people's lives. I think it's definitely important, and it can be a good facet, a good kind of door to understanding the meaning of your life, just looking at other people's lives, right? And seeing what you wouldn't want for yourself.
Mhm.
Of course, but that's definitely like, I would say it's not like something inherent. It's not something that like that's just like the universe's meaning that they've placed for that incident. I think that's a meaning that we place, and we can choose to make
Interpret
that.
it that way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like an
I see what you're saying.
interpretation. I think that's a good word. Like, isn't it? It's a way of an interpretation of the incident, or of the person, or of that observation.
That's
But it can
wonderful,
definitely
John.
be beneficial. Like, not to get into the semantics of it, because no matter how we word it, it's basically we're just saying the same thing. Like, it's gonna be beneficial, I think. Um, but there's this quote by Sartre where they say, "Man, first of all, exists, encounters himself, surges up in the world, and defines himself afterwards." So basically, in other words, like for people, for humans, existence basically precedes essence. So, and this is goes into, like, I've spoken on the podcast before about how I feel about the meaning of life, and I feel that humans basically have to decide what it means to be human, and to have meaning in life individually through their actions, and thereby give their lives meaning, right? So there is no cookie cutter universe like drops you a meaning in life, right? For all of humanity. It's kind of like there is no meaning. We're just like cosmic matter floating around on this giant swirling ball. And we have the consciousness that is the ability to add meaning to it. So for me, I would say that finding meaning in life is not this epiphany. It's not going to be like this atomic bomb that shakes your world and it like craters your whole soul in its wake. I would actually argue that meaning in life is an active, ever changing process that follows us through all the phases of our life. So think about it this way: when we were children, right? Our meaning was certainly different than now when we were in our 20s, right? And the meaning when we were in our 20s is different from now that we're in our 40s, let's say. And the meaning that we had for that decade is completely different from when we were 60, right? So by the time we reach our old age, the meaning that we have in life may be completely unrecognizable to who we were in the past. Although we continue to be the same person, just basically with added experiences, different values, personalities, and desires that have been chiseled by our time on this earth. So basically, with my line of thinking on this kind of like the way meaning of life shapes as we age and as we develop as individuals, the question kind of arises of what can help guide us through this process in life study, and what are some things that in your life so far do you think have kind of shaped the way that you found meaning in your day-to-day life and just in your life as a whole?
See, there are a few elements that you presented earlier that kind of resonated with me because when I was thinking about our conversation today, I really sat there and contemplated what, like, at the end of the day, what ways can you find meaning in your life, right? And that one recurring idea that permeated everything, like all the notes I took down, was the fact that you need to be present. You need to be aware because sometimes is in your environment, in your surrounding, that you can find a purpose for yourself or something to get you going to make you want to
Hmm.
wake up in the morning, right? And you said something about, how it changes over time from when you're a child to, when you go through your teenage years and, young adult life to adult life. This is true, but I feel like it doesn't apply to everybody. There are some people who very young, they had a defining moment, something that you could liken to something like a core memory where they saw someone or something that spoke to them, and they decided they're going to dedicate their entire lives to making that who they are. I'm talking about people who decided very young that maybe they wanted to be a doctor, they wanted to be an engineer. I think in our day-to-day lives, especially with the way life is nowadays, we have, and also depending on what kind of environment you grew up in, sometimes you have to face so many hardships that make it so that you don't even have time to think about certain things. You just have to worry about, I need to put food on the table, I need to make sure rent is paid, and this and that and the other. So you have more basic physiological needs. So you're not even able to think about um, a purpose for yourself. Kind of like that Uber driver you mentioned in a previous podcast,
Oh yeah.
where you get so stuck in that routine of, I'm just trying to provide for myself and my family, that you don't really have time to think about, but what matters to me, what makes me tick, what resonates with me. You don't have time to think about those things because you're more concerned with more pressing matters, right? But some people who've had the luxury to dream and to find an aspiration that defines them, they're able to go through life just essentially always working towards that goal. And when they achieve it, sometimes you ask them, what, like, how did you decide this what you wanted to do? And they'll tell you, yeah, when I was a kid, I saw, either my dad was a firefighter, or somebody close to me was a doctor, an engineer, or something. And they'll say, that's when I decided I wanted to do that. And then they dedicated their lives to making that happen. And then when they get there, then the rest of their lives is making sure they're the best at that specific, you know, field, or that specific interest. It's like, I'm gonna dedicate my life now to being the best that I can be in that field. So I think it varies on the person, but the purpose of today's conversation is mostly for people who don't even have that. People like me. Because when I was a kid, I didn't have that vision. I didn't have something or a moment where I saw somebody do something, or I was exposed to anything that spoke to me on the level where I decided that I wanted to define my life around it. I don't know about you, but I haven't had that experience, right? So it was very much the case that I needed to be present throughout my life and pay attention to different stimuli around me, different things that could give me a direction. I kid you not. I think when I was around 14, between 13 and 14, I don't want to call it an existential crisis, because I feel like that's a little bit too young to be having something like that. But I had a realization for myself that I didn't have a passion. I didn't have a a goal or much meaning, really. I was just basically going through life doing the things that I was told I was supposed to do. Like, do your homework, go to school, much of my life growing up was dictated by my parents and what they wanted me to do, what they wanted me to be. So I never had that initiative of thinking to myself, this is what I want. Only thing that I knew was I like money. That's all I was really like certain of. So I was like, if I can find something that I don't even have to like it, right? That was my mindset at the time. I was like, I don't even have to like it. If I just find something that I'm good at that brings me money, I'll do it. My whole passion was just give me money so I can actually do the things I really want to do in life, like eat good foods, travel, hang out with friends, like things like that, right? So if that's what resonates for you, just do that. Don't worry about comparing yourself to somebody else who seems to have a really clear vision and really clear purpose in life. Like, if that's what it is for you, just focus on that. It's like, I'm just going to make money, try to find the skills that I can to do that, and then spend it on the things I want to spend it on. But um I don't want to go off too long on like a single tangent, but I broke it down to basically four basic points, and then if we have time we can go into them a little bit more.
Yeah.
So it's basically like this, right? The first thing is that awareness is key. in the process of finding meaning in life. Awareness is extremely important of yourself and of your surroundings, because you never know where it's going to come from. And I have more details on that. The second one is to surround yourself with quality people. Because what was that saying, that you're the sum of the five people you hang around the most? Is that
Yeah, yeah. There's
the
there's a
saying?
saying like that.
Yeah, the saying like that, right? That says basically you're a reflection of who you surround yourself with. So if you surround yourself with quality people that will stimulate you in different ways, you're going to get someplace in life. Third one, be willing to try new things. Don't just limit yourself to what you know or what makes you comfortable, because who knows, maybe what you're meant to do is something that you never saw yourself doing. How often does that happen in your life, Raven, where you see some people, they tell you, I never thought in my wildest dreams I'll be doing this today, but now I'm doing it, I love it,
Yeah.
right? It happens all the time. So always be willing to try new things. And then finally, find areas in your life that are lacking in some way. Like just sit down and objectively look at your life and ask yourself, what is something that's missing? What are ways that I can improve my quality of life? Is it, do I need to make more money? Do I need to eat healthier? Do I need to exercise more? It could be something basic like that, and then it can go to something deeper in terms of like your character. Is there something about your personality that you think is a drawback? Things of that nature, because through the process of working on yourself, you might discover things about yourself that you never even knew. And that could lead down the road where you find more meaning in life.
Mm-hmm.
So those are kind of the main points that I came down to.
Nice. Yeah. And that's definitely, I agree with pretty much everything you said. And I think like you touched on something that I think about a lot, and that's why I opened with my statement, that finding meaning is not going to be this epiphany. It's not, for most people, it's not going to be this atomic bomb, and it doesn't have to be this big bombastic goal. So if you feel that, oh, my goal in life isn't to be the pirate king, so I have no meaning in life, that does not equate to not having meaning in life. So for me, like not having a big major goal that's going to shake the world and change history as we know it, or just change you, if you don't have that, that doesn't mean that you don't have meaning in life. So like take it to like a story like Claymore, right? Which is actually the thumbnail of this video. And the reason I picked it is because if you don't even have to know the story of Claymore, right? Just look at that thumbnail, right? And just look at the story from a surface level. And you'll see this story and you'll see all of these claymores, right? All of these women, these warriors, they look uniform. They all look alike. And you would look at them and you would think that like these are just like lifeless carbon copies, robots. Like, there's no individuality. They're just like copy and pasted by some type of genetic code or something. However, if you actually read the story, they're all unique and they're all their own person and they're all very different, deep down on the inside, right?
Yeah.
And one of the main things in the story that drove these characters to find who they are was other characters. Of course, the main most prominent example of this in the story is Claire, the main character, and Teresa, her kind of mentor and mother figure character. And that relationship really drove Claire through the entire story. I mean, even towards the end, it just everything just came full circle, and it was kind of at the crux of the story. This interpersonal relationship, and it even goes into One Piece, right, where he's someone who has this main bombastic goal, right? He wants to become the Pirate King, and you could say that this is his meaning in life, right? To find the One Piece. But what happened when Ace died and he lost his crew? He didn't give a crap about the One Piece. He was ready to just stay in that forest, banging his head on a rock on this self destructive path. Where if he continued on that path, he would have completely abandoned that goal or meaning, at least for for quite a significant amount of time because of how distraught he was. It might have even, you could argue, like, put him on a path of vengeance instead of on the path of the One Piece. But what did Jinbei say that kind of grounded him and brought him back, right? It's not what you lost, it's what you still have. And then Luffy started thinking back to all of his friends and all of the things that he gained along the journey to this goal, right? And now, even though the goal itself brought him meaning, right? I would argue that the what he gained along the way brought him just as much meaning, if not even more meaning, right?
You know
And
what's
so,
actually oh, go
yeah,
ahead.
no, 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 go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say, you know what's actually interesting about Luffy? He kind of reminds me of me a little bit. Not to sound conceited or anything, but um there's some I saw some clips recently of Luffy when he was really, really young. Did you know he didn't always want to be a pirate?
Mhm.
He just wanted to have um freedom to do as he wishes, but he just didn't know which path to go on. Like, because I remember when his grandpa Garp would try to train him to be a Marine, he would always go against him, right? He's like, I don't know what I want, but I know for sure I don't want to be a Marine. So don't even try to force me to be that, right? And it wasn't until he interacted with Shanks and was inspired by Shanks that he decided, oh wow, you know what? I think I want to be a pirate. So it was really because of Shanks, right? So it wasn't like the way Luffy is so passionate about finding the One Piece and being the Pirate King. It's easy to forget sometimes that it wasn't an epiphany for him either. It was a result of like a combination of his nature, who he is at his base, somebody who just wants to be free, and his surroundings and the people that he interacted with. Like, remember how I said, like, surround yourself with quality people. I think you'd agree that Shanks is as quality as it gets when it comes to the One Piece world. So that kind of drove him to where he is now. And I think we get reminders of that every once in a while in the story.
Yeah, and so basically, what I was saying was thinking of his friends was like kind of able to ground Luffy again, and it goes into what you're saying too, where like sometimes you need others by your side to like kind of help you get on that path to finding that meaning, right?
Mm.
And like I think it goes into what you're saying too, is that like a sense of community is important, right?
Yeah.
And with sense of community, in terms of just like human life, what do we usually associate with communities? We associate them with kind of like with hobbies, right? And I feel like that's where hobbies come in and can help us kind of find meaning in life. For me, I know that like the best I felt in life is when I took up dance classes, while at the same time, like I was spending a lot of time with friends every week, taking a day to try something new, going to like an off Broadway show, meeting new people, going to the gym, talking to people at the gym, getting out of my comfort zone, doing things like that I normally wouldn't, right? Like going to the library. Like I don't really read books that often, but I'd go to the
I need to read
library.
more books. I ain't gonna lie to you, bro. I
Yeah,
don't read enough.
yeah. Going to the bar with friends. I picked up fragrances, so now I'm always buying fragrances, and I go out to like cologne and perfume shops, and I'll meet people there sometimes, picking up videography, photography, volunteering. I volunteered to feed the elderly recently, or volunteering at an animal shelter, starting this podcast. So these are all things that, for myself, very recently in my 20s, have helped build for me, help build a sense of belonging and meaning in the world for me in this time of my life, because I'm actively doing things I like and making great connections with people that I normally wouldn't in the process, right? And I feel like there's so much to life and this world, and there's so much that is there to be explored. But the key word is explored. It's a verb, it's an action. So even if it's a tiny movement in your daily life, a step is a step, and you won't find meaning in your life if you're not taking that step. Or in other words, you won't find meaning in your life if you're not living. That's basically like kind of my mentality on how I find meaning in life. You have to be actively participating in life in order to find the meaning in it, you know? Teddy, do you know, like, have you seen people who they make fun of, like, soccer moms, right? Or moms who join book clubs. Or you
Yeah.
have, like, the stereotype of the dads who have their fantasy sports team, like, "Oh, that's so lame, like, look at this boomer stuff." But these are actually examples in the real world of like people doing like healthy community building and finding purpose like in their little communities, right?
Yeah.
So we see it strange when like we see people living with their parents past their 20s, but for many it's the standard of life, and that provides community and purpose in its own way as well. So there's many ways to find meaning in life, and my kind of thing on it for people is that if you don't feel like you've had this kind of like you were saying before, Teddy, like the meeting with Shanks, right? Where you just meet this person who's so influential and charismatic that they kind of drive you to change yourself or to change your goal or to find your goal, right? And you don't have this epiphany or this big realization, this volcanic eruption, and you don't have this you feel aimless and you feel like life sucks still. Um Remember that it's an active step. It's a marathon and not a sprint for a lot of people. And as long as you're actively living life, um, you're gonna. Yeah, I think you're gonna find meaning. And it doesn't have to be a big meaning. Sometimes it can be just even a small meaning, right? Like, man, I really want to go this year to like a cabin in the woods, and you make that your kind of goal or meaning for the year, right? Like the whole year, you're just gonna work and kind of save up and kind of plan for it, and then you do it, and then it's great. But
I
of
think,
course there's problems with it, right, Teddy?
yeah. Like, because the thing is, you have to remember what it comes down to at the end of the day is finding what matters to you. If you can do that, you're on the right track, right? Because it's not like this ethereal kind of hazy concept or confusing concept. It's when you break it down, that's all it comes down to at the end of the day is find what matters to you, what makes you tick, right? But yeah, it's not always, as straightforward as we'd like, and that's part of the journey. That's part of the process. You have to embrace it and realize that's just the nature of the beast, and you have to deal with it.
Yeah. And one problem I could see arising is like with the cabin example, right?
Yeah.
You could be working the whole year to go to that cabin, and then when you go in the summer, it just sucks. Like the whole trip just sucked, and you've been working towards this like for a long time now. So
Yeah.
I think you have to be ready for those failures as well, like where sometimes it's just like,
Expect disappointment sometimes.
yeah, even from yourself. And there were these two psychologists, Gary Recker and Paul Wong, in the 80s, that they were arguing their own kind of way to find meaning in life, right? And they were arguing that meaningfulness is better explained and understood using a three-dimensional model. So this 3D model of the meaning in life is split into these aspects, right? So you have coherence, you have purpose, and you have significance. So significance refers to the sense that our life is worth living, right? The sense of having that worth. So in other words, I'll put it simply, right? Your life has to make sense. It has to be coherent. Your life must have a goal, aka a purpose, and your life must be worth something, aka significance. So those are the three ways in order for it to have meaning. So that's the makeup, according to them, of what will give your life meaning. So I think it's a good breakdown. That's another kind of little nugget there of wisdom, of philosophy from two psychologists that can definitely help you uh, be put on the path to finding your own meaning. And even Viktor Frankl in 1959 supported the notion that finding meaning is a unique journey when he wrote in Man's Search for Meaning. Man's search for meaning is the primary motivation of his life, and not a secondary rationalization of instinctual drives. This meaning is unique and specific in that it must and can be fulfilled by him alone. Only then does it achieve a significance that will satisfy his own will to meaning. So what do you kind of think about these ideas, Teddy, of the 3D model? Because I think we both kind of agree with that Viktor Frankl guy that, it's a unique journey, it's going to be individual, it's going to be different for everybody. But what do you think about the 3D model, the coherence, purpose, and significance model for meaning? Do you think it's viable? Do you think it's maybe too stiff? Like it's not cookie cutter. That's not the way it works. Or
Yes, so coherence, meaning, and significance, right? Those are the three. Um,
yeah, like your life must make sense. It must have a goal, and it must be worth something to you to have meaning.
I feel like um, it's a very rigid model, if you ask me. I feel
Hmm.
like, especially the coherence part, because sometimes you don't decide what makes sense in your life. Like, you can have a plan, you can say this is what I want to do, but we all know the nature of life. When you exist in a world with other people, things are going to happen that are a little bit outside of your control, and you're going to find yourself trying to make sense of it. And sometimes you can't, because it's just so much chaos, and you're there thinking to yourself, like, what is happening to me right now?
Hmm.
But just because that's the case doesn't mean that your life doesn't have meaning, because
Hmm.
you're still working towards something in spite of that, right? So I feel like that model makes sense, but it doesn't offer much flexibility
Yeah.
into how you approach it. Because I feel like if you were to present that to somebody who's trying to find meaning in their life, they might get confused, or they're trying to have to follow that approach and have a very systematic approach to their goal, or to their life, I mean. And it's going to result in potentially frustration, because that's not how it works all the time.
Yeah.
So you can't limit yourself to that specific way of thinking, in my opinion. I
Yeah,
don't
for
know.
sure. I feel like it can be beneficial. Like I feel like that model, if you told most people about that model, most people would say, "Oh yeah, that makes complete sense." Like I definitely think that that's like viable. Like I can apply that to my life, but they're definitely like you have to leave it always open to the fact that not everybody's gonna find value in it. Not everybody's gonna find value in everything. What if like you're talking to a kid and you're telling them like, "Hey, your life must make sense in order to have meaning," and they're like, "Well, my parents aren't there for me, or they're abusive parents. Like my life sucks. It doesn't make any sense. It's just absurd. It just almost like goes into the realm of absurdism, which is also another topic that we'll have to definitely cover on the podcast one day. The concept that basically like life and meaning itself like is just absurdity. Like the universe is just a meaningless void that's just like pure of absurdity, and trying to make meaning of it would be something absurd. Um, but basically, yeah, like it's just not gonna fit everybody. Like I feel like I can fit it into my life, right? I
Yeah.
feel like I can make sense of my life. I have a goal, and I feel like it's worth my life is worth something to me, right? Um, but definitely, I could see some people who
That
who
last
who
one,
wouldn't see
though,
it that way.
the significance one is actually very important, because even if you have the first two,
Yeah,
if you don't think your life is worth living, then that opens a really dark path,
yeah,
because at that point you can justify doing almost anything, because you feel like your life doesn't have meaning. And going back to um that story you shared in the opening, of that guy who just went around randomly stabbing people in Seoul, it's
yeah,
like that. He probably doesn't see any significance to his life. So if it's not that, it's something like taking your own life, because you
yeah,
feel like, oh, there's no, like, what's the point? Because you can be working towards something, right? But if you're thinking to yourself, but what's the point? Why am I doing it? Does it matter? at the end of the day? Like, what's that gonna do for me?
Hmm.
That kind of thinking just shows that you don't think your life is worth living.
Yeah,
So
and
I feel
and
like out of those three pillars, that's the most important one.
I think so too, actually, because like I was speaking to someone recently, and they were telling me that they're so basically they're studying like finance, right? And so they're still a student in university, and they're studying finances. And I just kind of asked them, like, just as a casual question, like, hey, like, what's your kind of goal? Like, is there anything you're kind of working towards, or anything you really want in life, out of life, like, when you're like, you know as you grow up, basically, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they were like, well, I don't want anything, like, I don't really have like this big crazy goal. I just want to make some money. I just want to, be rich. And I was thinking about the topic of this podcast. I was like, well, then, like, why does this person like not suffer from the lack of meaning in life? Like, they seem driven, they seem like a person who's got their stuff together, right?
Yeah.
And one thing I've noticed and observed about that person is that they're very close to their family, and they're always doing something with their family. Every week they have something to look forward to involving their family and friends. And it goes back to, I think, a great point that you made mid podcast study about like having the sense of community, having like a sense of like family and friendship, and people around you that will keep you grounded. And even if like life seems hard to navigate, and meaning in life seems hard to kind of comprehend and find, you'll have others there on the path with you, and that makes it significant, I'd say.
I would agree. I would agree 100%. And that's why, when I said you have to surround yourself with quality people, that's kind of what I was referring to, right?
Hmm.
Because and by that, I mean three things essentially. It's like either people who are really passionate, right? Because passion is infectious. If you see somebody who they're into something that really matters to them and they're close to you, you might just start developing an interest in it too, because you're thinking, wow, I wonder what they see in it that just makes them come alive every time that they're, talking about it or partaking that activity or that interest. So that's a big one. And then the other one too is, people who see potential in you that you don't see in yourself. Because sometimes we have skills and abilities and we have certain affinities, but we don't notice them because you know how it is easier for people on the outside looking in to see what you're good at or what's wrong with you than it is for yourself because it's you. You're not always able to have that outsider perspective.
Yeah,
But when you have people around you that see that potential in you, it's a beautiful thing. Have you watched Gurren Lagann?
yeah, yeah. There's a
You
great quote
remember?
from it. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, do the honors, man. Do the honors.
Hey, hey, so let me break it down. The main character is basically he doesn't believe himself. He's a nerd. He's scum of the earth. He's even worse than Deku at this point in time, right?
Oh,
He's just crying. Like, that's how low he is, right? And the goat, Kamina, he comes up
Kamina.
and he tells him, and this is in a crucial moment, right? He tells him, listen, don't believe in yourself. And even the main character, he has to backtrack. He's like, wait, what? What did you just tell me? Don't
What do you
believe in
mean by
myself.
that?
And he was like, yeah, don't believe in yourself. Believe in the me that believes in you.
Oh, Lord have mercy. To this day, one of the best quotes in anime. I don't care what anybody tells me, bro.
Yeah, oh man, I need to rewatch that
It
just for
gives me
that scene.
goosebumps just to think about it. So that's what I mean, man. It's like when you have people like that in your life, it's like, don't worry. You may not believe in you, but I believe in you, and I'll show you the
Hmm.
way. And then you go on that journey with them, and you find yourself. Because Simon, he found himself in that process, even
Yeah,
though a man Kamina had to pay the price, but that's a story for another day.
yeah.
But and then finally, right, you need people that will challenge you in meaningful ways to step
Hmm.
outside of your comfort zone. So don't surround yourself with people that are going to feed you lies, right? And rub you in the right all the right ways and tell you, oh no, you're fine just the way you are. There's no problem. You're okay. Like, no, no, none of that. You need people that are going to make you grow, that are going to help you grow, right? And that's what I mean when I say surround yourself with quality people. You remember Saitama at
Hmm.
first, right? He has, after he becomes completely overpowered, he really has no vision because he's just thinking, I'm waiting for that stimulus of somebody that's going to be able to fight on equal footing with me. But honestly, if I'm being honest, I don't think he's ever gonna find that personally, because he's just too broken. But maybe he will. Maybe he will. Fingers crossed, right? But notice how when he started hanging out with Genos and they did the test, like the hero test to see what rank you're going to be, and Saitama ends up in the C rank, and Genos is in S. That gives Saitama something to work towards. I don't know if you remember this, but at some point he was like, huh, I guess I really need to put in work to be an S rank as well, because this guy is supposedly my disciple, but my disciple is a S rank hero and I'm a C rank hero, barely. Like, that's not acceptable, right? So that gives him something to work towards. But it's not until season 2 that he's really introduced to a different way of thinking altogether through King, right?
Yeah.
Because King will tells him, well, if he comes and just like punching villains and you'll get that in spades. You're good. Like, you already won. Like, nobody's gonna challenge you on that level. But have you thought about what it means to be a hero?
Hmm.
Like, have you actually really thought about it? And you see Saitama is like, oh, that's a good point. I guess I was so focused on just the strength side of things that I never really took the time to sit down and think to myself what it actually means to be a hero,
Yeah.
right? So you see, over time, between Silverfang Bang, Fubuki, Tatsumaki, Genos, King, he's starting to gradually surround himself with people that are bringing meaning to his life.
Hmm.
Quality people, it's so important. I can't emphasize that enough.
Yeah. Now, of course, there's going to be a problem that arises, and I'll finish off with this and leave this as a teaser for maybe a part three. But if we derive or get this meaning from from communities and people and society in a sense, right?
Mhm.
How much of it is just a lie of society, and how much of it is within ourselves. I know this person recently that's come under criticism because they never expressed any desire to kind of want to become like a police officer,
Mm.
and they're becoming a police officer now, right? And very recently, that so the act of becoming a police officer was preceded by hanging with a lot of police officer friends, and recently picking up the SWAT TV show, like a police TV show, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of family is basically like saying like, well, I mean, how much of that is actually you wanting to become a cop, and basically making that your whole life based around that for the next few years, and how much of it that is that, like, oh, you finally got some friends and they all just happen to be cops, and you watched like a cop TV show once, and you're just being influenced. You're just being easily influenced by others. So there's definitely that problem that can arise with the meaning in life that I can see, but I think I'd rather leave that as a teaser because that's probably going to be a very big topic. I'm sure you have a lot to say about that. You might even disagree that maybe it still even is a proper meaning. Um, and I think it depends. I'm pretty sure you probably
It
feel the same
depends,
way.
100%. Yeah, but
Yeah,
like you said, that's a whole tangent.
yeah,
Can
that's a
go
whole yeah.
really, really further down the rabbit hole. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's a good place to end it. I think we gave kind of our. This is one of the few podcasts where we just completely like everything you say, 100% co-sign it. I 100% agree, and I'm sure vice versa. Like it's like I think this is a topic we think very much alike on. So it's one of those, and there's gonna be some podcasts that we think very differently on, which I think is gonna highlight some of our kind of individual philosophies, our own kind of
Oh,
unique ways of looking in life, right?
you know what? I just, oh God. See,
What
this
what
is
what?
this is the nature of these kinds of conversations. My brain just went somewhere else, but I feel like this is a conversation that's going to be extremely controversial. So I don't even know that I want to have that on the podcast. We can talk about it off air, but yeah, it's a topic that means a lot to me because I feel like we're living in times where people like meaning in life, and so they
Mhm.
distract themselves with things that they believe brings meaning to them, but really it's just it's superficial. It's not real,
Yeah.
and yeah, but
Maybe next we'll do a not next, but of course like soon we'll do a podcast on like whether or not your meaning in life is true or fabricated, or how to know that, how to identify that within yourself and for yourself.
yeah,
But yeah, this is so interesting. Thank you again, Teddy, for joining me.
always, man. It's
And
always a good time.
yeah, and thank you for everybody who's watching this after the fact. And we thank you for all the support, all the likes, subscriptions, all the comments you guys have been leaving. And yeah, I guess that's it. We're gonna catch you all on the
Oh,
next one. Oh
real
yeah,
real quick
last
before we
last thing.
go,
What's up?
just real last thing, let it be known, we are men of our word. We said we're going to talk about this, and we did. So we always keep our word. So, just for future reference, if you want to talk about something and we tell you we will cover it, trust that we will.
Yeah, and by the way, I believe the username was Shadow in some form. You asked for a video on power. We're giving it to you. It's coming. It's coming in the next, I think, 3 weeks. It's down the line. So look out for that one. The implications of power by the pursuit of anime. It's gonna be a great one.
Mm.
But we'll leave you with we left you with some teasers at the end there. But we'll end on this. You guys, thank you for joining us. We hope it was insightful. Let us know what you think in the comments below, how you find meaning in life, and we look forward to reading your comments. With that, we are out. Peace.
Peace.